We start with some exposition about Caliban, how it was an untamed world filled with monsters, and even bigger and greater monsters. We learn of their way of life, of nobility becoming knights in knightly orders and hunting beasts, until the order formed, which allowed anyone of any social status to join them. They had the cycle of life and followed it, until they found Lionel Johnson, the lion, the son of the forest. At first a wild man, then in less than a year a bright savant. He also got up in rank in the order, becoming its master and declaring a worldwide campaign to cleanse the beast. And so they did. With some opposition here and there, it didn't take 6 years as the lion thought, it took 10. Zahariel was kidnapped and took to a secret place. Bound and covered, he was interrogated by 3 men. He expected as much, but he didn't expect a knife to his throat. His master Ramiel told him his time to be initiated had come, but he couldn't give him the details. The morning before, his master took Zahariel and told him that his initiation will come tomorrow. Then they discussed the philosophy of the spiral, knight supplicants always trained on. The master talked about how cyclical history is, how as humans from birth to date make the same mistakes in judgment, and how this applies to humanity overall. Back in the interrogation room, Zahariel was questioned by 3 voices. 2 were neutral in their rapid-fire questioning, but one was mocking him and berating him, sometimes not even asking questions. This continued for a while until all 3 voices decided unanimously that the supplicant is ready to be a knight. Zahariel had the sack over his head removed and his ties cut. In front of him, he saw Lord Cypher, Luther, and Lionel Johnson. The newly made knight was in awe at the presence of the lion and Luther and considered himself to be blessed. Luther wanted to hurry the process up. Cypher admonished him, and the lion came to his mentor/brother/fatherly figure's defense. Zahariel gets bloodied and swears if he doesn't keep his oath, the same knife that cut his palm will cut his throat. And so he became a knight of the order. Zahariel's palm wound would heal in time, but would always leave a phantom itch there, always to remind him of his oath. Growing up in the order, teachers always told their supplicants that they are like brothers. But for Zahariel and Nemiel, this wasn't a problem. The 2 cousins have always treated each other as brothers, their friendly rivalry spurred on by Master Ramiel. Individually, these 2 weren't that much, but together, they could make each other excellent. It was back when both of them were 9, and they were sparring for 15 minutes, always being equally matched. The master told him to hurry up, or else he would declare it a draw. Zahariel won, of course. As the master declared him victorious, he started to walk to the exit. The 2 cousins discussed a little while walking behind the master, of how Nemiel wouldn't be defeated again by such a move. And Zahariel knew that. They go at lengths about the phrase interesting time, its meaning and use on Terra, but Nemiel isn't convinced there is a Terra or humanity in other places in the stars, only on Caliban. Their master tells them to hurry. If they don't, they would get 2 sentry turns this night. Now he would regularly send them to the kitchen, but Master Amadis was coming and every young one should be present. The 2 boys run as fast as they can to see their hero. Amadis was their hero, a knight that single-handedly slew the Blood Knights. Yes, Zahariel's father would always tell this heroic story in the darkest hours of nights to scare his sons. Now Amadis wasn't much of a man like the lion, and this disappointed Zahariel. But as Amadis gave his speech and said he would be at the fortress helping the instructors, Zahariel and Nemiel were filled with pride and renewed vigor to become the best knights of the Order of Caliban. But Zahariel made a silent oath to never lose sight of what was important. Usually Zahariel had the same nightmares. He was 7, and alongside his cousin and other boys, they went to the fortress of the Order to become knights. Their test was to stand outside without their cloaks and boots. It was winter. Simple enough if we discard the fact that the Order only took supplicants in the winter, so you can see how this becomes a problem. The dream went in as Zahariel's memory usually did. The guards mocked them and tried to make them quit, but they didn't change randomly. A proud boy that stood next to Zahariel was promised he would be accepted, and there was no need to take the test because the Grandmaster took notice of him. The boy was happy and went on his knees. This was the plan of the guard, and they threw him into the forest. Then night came, and the forest started to mess with them, especially with Zahariel's mind. But his cousin was right there beside him, and that gave him strength to not give in. After some more hours, Master Ramiel came and congratulated them on their success and gave them a first lesson. That sword skill can be taught, but willpower cannot be, and they all managed to pass the test thanks to it. Nemio woke up his cousin from his dream and hurried him to get ready. Zahariel asked why, and his cousin told him that they'll be going on a hunt with Brother Amandis. Zahariel led his band on horses. We get introduced to a younger boy named Attilas or something like that, who is a bookworm that Zahariel took under his wing. We also met another boy, a Bolkish boy, that alongside Nemio would play jibs on the other supplicant. The two cousins disagreed with each other on this. Nemio thought a supplicant should succeed and fail on their own merits. Zahariel thinks that they should help each other like brothers. The Bolkish boy makes a joke at Attilas' expense, and the younger boy responds back with his own. Zahariel tells them to calm down and stop it, and he was happy to see Attilas stand up for himself. Brother Amandis congratulated Zahariel on the way he acted, but taught him that a little rivalry is good. He then told him to take a scouting position. Zahariel told his party to take the position, and they did. They rode for a while, and at one point they found their beast, who instantly killed two supplicants. The beast attacked the kids, killed some of them, including their horses. Zahariel was pushed into a tree, and Nemio shot at the creature from behind another tree. The beast went after Attilas, but Zahariel distracted its attention. It was then that Brother Amandis came and killed the beast. After that day, he would always tell the story of his fight against the beast, but Nemio always told him he was lucky back then. Of course, Zahariel's story did not involve all the points that mentioned he was scared and doubted he would live. Most people don't want to hear that part of the story or any other bravely stories. Zahariel was cleaning his gun. He got into a little spat with Nemio because the armorer told Zahariel to clean his gun when he went to him, to tell him it wasn't shooting right. Nemio kind of took the armorer's side, and that infuriated Zahariel. They got into a little spat, and Zahariel almost made it understood that he is better than Nemio. After Nemio left, Brother Amandis came and took Zahariel. He was to go up in the circle. Zahariel was presented to Lord Cypher, an old man, and they talked about traditions. Here we learn that Lord Cypher is not a name, but a title. Of course, it becomes a name once somebody reaches that rank of Keeper of Traditions, and it is forbidden to ever say his old name. Some more talk about tradition, that goes well, and Zahariel's next step is to follow the lion, who just appeared there. Lionel Johnson takes him to a tower made more for stargazing than anything else. Here the lion speaks about his dreams of making Caliban their paradise, not before saying that it would be better for Terra to just be a myth. He does say that sometimes he looks at the stars and sees a golden light coming to Caliban. What that means, he doesn't know. The lion wasn't a traditionalist. If he could, he would wash away all the traditions of the order. But it was what it was. The lion then left, excusing himself to his own duties. Zahariel looked at the stars and felt glad that while you can't pick the eras you are born in, he was born in the era of the Lion and Luther, two great men that would surely change the world. The North Wilds were now the only place still left with beasts in it, mostly because the Knights of Lupus did not approve of the Lion's conquest. They also declared war on the Order, but Luther calmed down the spirits. Back in the Order circle, they had a drill practice, where a circle of supplicants surrounded Zahariel and Nemio, who stood back to back. Here we learned that the circle is a good defensive position. Of course, the two cousins managed to hold off any who tried to pass the outer circle. After the fight was over, the two cousins, alongside the Bolkish boy named Attila, or something like that, and Attilas joked. Brother Amandis then commanded the two cousins to come with him. A representative of the Knights of Lupus were coming, and the order needed its best supplicants. Zahariel and Nemio wondered why the Knights of Lupus were coming there to begin with. Zahariel heard that their order was dying. At first, many knights left for the order, and then they didn't get any supplicants anymore. Brother Amandis comes between the two cousins, and we find out that what the order is doing is a display of force, having the supplicants there in the welcoming circle. Out came the lion, Luther, and the representative of the Knights of Lupus. The representative wanted to discuss matters in private with the lion, but he answered that they have no secrets. The representative said the lion broke their truce. The lion simply asked, "What truce?" Luther came in and calmed the two. Apparently some hunters sent by the order to map out the North Wilds, because of course they planned to kill all the beasts on the planet, remember, got killed by the Knights of Lupus. The representative almost threatened war, and to Zahariel it almost looked like that was what the lion wanted. In the end, the representative knew starting a war would be dumb considering their numbers and all, and he took his leave. During the exchange between the lion and the representative, we learned that the village lost 200 people thanks to the beasts in the North Wilds. Brother Amandis was from that village and asked the lion if it's true. When the lion confirmed, Amandis declared a quest against that beast. Amandis was from that village, so as you can expect, that affected him. 5 months later, Brother Amandis came back with a broken arm, multiple bleeding wounds, and in a bad shape. Knights came to help him, but Lord Cypher came and told him to leave him alone. The Keeper of Traditions knew he was dying. Amandis left his pistol to Zahariel, and he joked a little before revealing that the beast that slew him was a Calibanite lion, thought to be killed by Lionel Johnson. Of course, that's kind of surprising. But Amandis wished the story was true that there was none left. And just like that, Brother Amandis dies. Lord Cypher tells the supplicant to honor the pistol and its weight. Zahariel says he will, and declares a quest against the Calibanite lion. He will leave in 3 days, and as it is tradition, there would be a feast in his honor before he leaves. Nemio disagreed with Zahariel, and that's how they spent most of the feast. But Nemio wasn't the only one. The Knights of the Fortress thought it was a dumb idea too. But the matter was settled. Zahariel couldn't back down now. As Master Ramio says, the beast is the one that picks the knight, not the other way around. In the end, the two cousins cheer and hope they will be able to see each other again. Zahariel starts his journey. He had a guide that took him into the forest, but only to a certain point. The guide liked talking and told Zahariel about how the lion left many orphans, how food was in short supply too, how the lion killed friends and relatives with ease. Once the guide took him to where he should be, he left. Zahariel, not with the usual farewells of Caliban, but with words of mourning, telling the young knight the watchers in the dark guide him, and that he will give an offering for Zahariel tonight. Zahariel went through the forest, dark and soul-crushing. At some point he heard voices saying he is tainted and that they should kill him. Zahariel asked for them to reveal themselves, and out pops one tiny creature with green robes. Yes, those cute little buggers are the Watchers in the dark. The Watcher tells the knight to go back. Zahariel asks some questions, and he finds out that there are more planets with humans on them, and that they, the Watchers, fight against an evil that they will not divulge. But it is one that haunts humanity as long as it exists. 2 more of these cheeky little dudes come out and they demand to kill Zahariel. He asks why, because he didn't do anything to them. The Watcher says that humanity is doomed. So Zahariel pledges that he will fight against the same evil they fight against. This pleases those cutie pies, and they tell him to leave the forest and go back, and he will find his beast. Zahariel asks as the Watchers leave what they mean by tainted, and they tell him not to seek the path of easy power. The knight goes back a little excited because he found those unhuman darlings, and just as he thought he had the answer the lion was seeking, the Calibanite lion jumps at him. As it usually happens, the horse goes first. unfortunately. Zahariel gets thrown off his saddle into the mud. He calculates his options, how many bolts he has left in his case. 24, that's the answer. Of course, he would use the pistol to shoot at the lion, but it barely affected the beast. The two fight then in glorious melee, and when Zahariel is close to being devoured by the beast, time slows down, and he can see the organs of the monster. He can see his broken ribs. He positions his pistol hand to the lion's heart and shoots it, killing it. He wonders if this was the thing the Watchers refer to. Of course, he wonders about that after he cleans himself up. He decides this is a matter better kept to himself. People have been burned for less on Caliban. Now he looks for a trophy. Most of the beast was mush, so he went for the only part that was still intact, the head. Zahariel came back to the Order fortress, and everyone cheered for him. He would get a private room, and his friend Attilas helped him. But the young boy was sad. He was happy Zahariel was a knight now, that he killed the beast. But the beast being eradicated, that meant his own knighthood will never happen. But Zahariel told him Caliban always needed knights to protect the world. Also, their fortress is known as the Rock because it's supposed to be their founding stone. This cheers the young boy up. Now to the nightly feast. The knights lift Zahariel up and throw him around like a sack of potatoes, as is their tradition. Humorous. Nemeo also went on his own beast quest, and he arrived back just 1 week before Zahariel did. Nemeo told his cousin that they will be like the lion and Luther. They will shape the world. Then Nemeo went to sleep on a chair because he drank too much wine. Luther came to Zahariel to apologize for playing the part of the devil in his initiation, and said he sees potential in the young knight. But before that, he jokes about the throwing tradition. He talks of how they have a sense of humor, after all. Zahariel asks about the lion, and Luther tells him he does have one, but his jokes usually fly over everyone's heads. Zahariel senses a sadness in Luther. The All Knight tells him how much of a genius the lion is, how he's perfect at everything he does, and that makes him a lonely man, because no one really understands him. Zahariel contemplates how Luther would have been a hero of legends, if not for the lion, and how he willingly and lovingly sacrificed his own legend for this young man of the forest. Next, Zahariel talks to Lord Cypher, who tells him the lion will become the Grand Master. The current Lord Cypher will retire. The next day, Lord Cypher, just a regular knight, went on a quest, and no one heard of him ever again. In the catacombs of the fortress, an honored place was made for him, and his remains, once those would be found. That was the last time Zahariel saw the Lord Cypher. On brighter news, Master Ramiel was considered for this position. As the party died down, the lion took Zahariel to speak with each other. The lion told him he is going to be the Grand Master of the Order. Zahariel tried to act surprised. He did promise Lord Cypher that he wouldn't tell anyone after all. But the lion had higher senses than most humans, and he could hear them. For 3 days, he did hear people whisper about it. The lion talks about how he doesn't feel any different, as Zahariel shouldn't either. Robes and titles should not make you forget who you are. Next, they discuss about the nature of the beasts and how the lion thinks killing them might be a mercy. They are twisted amalgamations of other creatures after all. Zahariel says he saw an evil in them when he fought them. Nevertheless, the lion concludes that they are doing something good. In the end, the lion tells Zahariel that they share a brotherhood made only of the two of them. They both killed the lion of Caliban. Now, Luther will be angry because there are no more left. Damn the foreshadowing on that one. There was also the matter of the Knights of Lupus, and the Order were at war after all. And of course, Zahariel and Nemir were sent to war. Zahariel was to watch over a group of woodsmen that cut lumber for the siege weapons. As he returned, he saw the sky was on fire from the constant siege. The siege master screamed at him and asked for his name. Once he learned who Zahariel was, he told him where his group would be. So our knight goes there, where Nemio and Sir Hadriel was waiting for them. or for him. Here Zahariel learns that there will be a 4-way assault, but the main one is going to be theirs in the south. The others will all be distractions, and the line would lead the one in the north. Nemio heard from a long line of sources that Luther didn't want to lead the assault in the south and wanted to be at the lion's side, but in the end he had to give up. During this discussion, they waited for some engineers to blow a hole and create an opening. Once the opening was made, the horn sounded and the assault began. Zahariel had a sword that was made from the lion's tooth, made at the order of Lionel Johnson. Zahariel had an epiphany. He dreamed of finding his end at the hands of an opponent in direct combat. But war was more impersonal. If Zahariel would die, it was probable he wouldn't see the man who killed him. There's a lot happening. They charge up the slope of the breeze and get into the courtyards. Knights are falling left and right from the bullets. Luther has an impressive posture, and pretty impressive one because it's like bullets are dodging him. Zahariel ends up fighting a Knight of Lupus on the ramparts, but he managed to kill him, which is good for Zahariel. After that, he regroups with his squad and they push forward into the fortress of the Knights of Lupus. Nemio boasts how he was the first in the charge, even before Tsar Luther. Our heroes charge forward, and they are greeted by 10 Knights of Lupus, and to the surprise of everyone, beasts in cages. The Knights of Lupus unleash the beasts and a huge fight starts. Nemio and Zahariel kill one, and at some point, the beasts are done. The two cousins wonder why the knights would have kept the beasts caged, and they didn't really have an answer. Things were going good for the order, but as beasts fell left and right, only one lizard-like creature remained. Luther tried to stab it, but couldn't. Then the lion came and attacked it. It didn't do much, but it allowed for Luther to stab it in the throat, which made the beast give an earth-shaking scream. To the point blood was starting to fall from the ears of the knights. The lion climbed on it, and unaffected by the scream, and stabbed it once more. With the beast now dead, everybody screamed Johnson. Zahariel saw for an instant jealousy on Luther's face, but it was gone so quick that he wondered if he saw it at all. The lion made them stop and told his brothers that the Knights of Lupus have used beasts, and because of that, they have forfeited mercy. And it was now kill on sight. The Knights of Lupus retreated to their keep. Zahariel and Nemio went to the keep like their brothers. They searched far and wide and found nothing, until they stumbled upon an old library, a giant one bigger than what they had back at the rock. There was Lord Sanatar, the leader of the Knights of Lupus. We now get a philosophical discussion about why the Lupus did not agree with the lion's quest. Long story short, the leader of Lupus said that the knightly orders are warriors and without beasts, they would get restless. Boredom creates unrest, and unrest creates anger. Next will come infighting once all the beasts are gone. That's why the Lupus had beasts. They wanted to breed them. He also says that the lion will destroy Caliban. Some more talk, and when the old man pulls out a knife, the two cousins are prepared to fight him, only for Sanatar to stab his own heart. Once the battle was over and every Knight of Lupus was hunted down and killed, the order celebrated their victory. The lion congratulated the two cousins for killing the leader of Lupus. He also ordered for all the books in their library to be moved to the rock. As they marched back to their fortress, the stories about the Knights of Lupus turned them into vile and despicable traitors. Zahariel wondered if that was correct. During their meeting in the chamber, he knew the lion gloated the Lupus into this war, and Zahariel wondered if that wouldn't tarnish the great crusade against the beasts. That power he had against the Calibanite lion also didn't appear again, making him wonder if that was some latent power the Watchers awakened in him, or was just his mind playing tricks on him to explain how he survived the horrible situation. Time would pass, and Zahariel started to consider the words of the leader of the Lupus as just ramblings of a defeated foe. New quests still were completed, including Attaias and Alitha, the Bokish boy, who now became knights. Only one beast remained, and the hunt for it was led by Lionel Johnson. Joining him, the two cousins, Luther, a new Lord Cypher, who surprisingly wasn't Master Ramiel, and many others. Lion halted them and wanted to give them a speech about their hunt, but great birds of metal came on the planet. The knights had their weapons drawn, but Luther told them it's an order from the Lion to put them back. Descending from the sky, great armored giants came to stand in front of the Lion. One took off his helmet and presented himself as Midris. This was an awe-striking apparition for the Knights of Caliban gathered there. Midris said that they are warriors of the First Legion. Of course, Luther asked, who's the First Legion? And the Space Marines responded, the First Legion of the Emperor, Master of Mankind, and Ruler of Terra. The people of Caliban were presented the new technologies of the Imperials, walkers that could tear down a forest in a short amount of time. I'll skip over the talk Nemio and Zahariel have about the Emperor and how curious Zahariel is about how the Emperor looks. The Astartes started a series of trials, only for those young enough apparently, and those trials and drills were harder than anything the Order had put them through. Nemio and Zahariel were done training, and in their contest, Nemio challenged his cousin to 10 laps around the ramparts. They went and ran for 5 laps. After that, Zahariel found some strange strength in him that allowed him to run faster and without tiring. So much he lapped his cousin. Nemio managed to finish the 10 laps, but he was done. He fell to the ground. While they were running, an Astartes in ornate armor looked at them run. And now, he was here to take Zahariel with him. Zahariel referred to him as my lord, but the Astartes said he didn't like that. And after that little exchange, we learned that his brother librarian is Raphael. This librarian takes our protagonist to the meditation cell. Asked if Zahariel had ever experienced strange things. At first, he lies. But then when Israphael makes it clear he will fail all the trials, and he won't become an Astartes, Zahariel tells him about the encounter with the Calibanite lion. We learn that this ability is called terror sighting, and it's quite rare. After that comes a lore dump where Zahariel is brought up to speed about the Emperor, the Primarchs, and the Space Marines, etc. The young knight is quite excited to see the Emperor in flesh, and lucky for him, he is coming soon. Times they are changing. The Imperium came to the world, and to the decry of some knights, the peasantry was recruited into the ranks of the Imperium. The knight thought of war as a noble thing, and to give the peasants that opportunity was sacrilegious. Despite the First Legion being organized much like the knightly order, they were more different than they should really have been. So the Lion disbanded all the knightly orders. Of course, many didn't agree, and this didn't happen overnight, but it came to pass. Zahariel and Nemio were on the ramparts. Only one trial remained before they would become full-fledged Astartes. The two cousins talked about the Imperium and how Caliban has changed massively. Forests being cut down to make space for barracks and manufactorum buildings. Nemio was more suspect of the Imperium and the greater changes. Zahariel never knew his cousin like this. He asked his cousin about that, and Nemio said he'd listen to the elders. If Zahariel wants to know, he must meet him near the cloister gate at the last bell. Said and done, Zahariel went to the cloister gate and entered the room of the spiral. He whispered for his cousin, and since nobody responded, he wanted to go back to his room. But Nemio called him from a strange spot. Zahariel climbed up to his cousin, and they went on a downward staircase. Nemio told him he will bring his cousin to the inner circle. There 4 figures awaited them, all hooded. Zahariel wanted to know why he was there. It was because he was close to the lion. So close, the two cousins will be part of the lion's guard when meeting the Emperor. The hooded figures talked about how Caliban has changed, how supplicants don't listen to their masters anymore, how guards respond back to their officers because the Imperium will protect them. They don't think the Imperium is that strong, or else they wouldn't have come as brothers with gifts. Surely this was a ploy. They also concluded a staging of a false attack to blame the Imperium and have all the world turn against them. Zahariel was outraged and he addressed a figure that stood silently and said nothing. This fourth said that they must cut the head of the snake. This enraged Zahariel, and he left while throwing words at them. His cousin came after him, trying to make him calm down. In his words, there were old heads that were just talking. Now, during the time the hooded figures talked about this, Nemiel didn't seem that convinced of the plan either. Zahariel was fuming and told his cousin that if they don't stop, he will report them to the line. His cousin promised that he will try to stop them. The next day, the order was prepared to meet with the Emperor. Zahariel was still concerned about the traitorous elements, and as he marched with the rest of the honor guard, he saw a suspicious figure. When a shadow cast over his face, he recognized him. It was one of the hooded figures from the night before. So, breaking ranks, to the hatred of the lower cipher, he went after the man. He tried to avoid Zahariel, but our young knight got to him and punched him. They started fighting, and despite the old knight having an age and experience advantage, he fought somehow slowly. When his robe got tattered, Zahariel saw he was a member of the order. They fought a little and they fell to the ground, the old knight's backpack ripping, and some small discs flew out. Those were explosives. Zahariel could tell by the pictogram on them. The Emperor's ship was getting close to the landing zone. Zahariel beat the old knight pretty good. Then an Astartes came and grabbed Zahariel by the throat. Others came and got the old man. When asked by a newly arrived Astartes what Midris had, he responded, traitors. Zahariel woke up in a room that, after exploring a little, he realized he wasn't on the rock anymore. As he imagined the possibilities of what happened, he got taken by two Astartes. And he got dragged to in front of brother Israfel, and another who was in white ceramite. They wanted to interrogate him. Zahariel tried to lie to say he just found that man suspect. But lying doesn't work with the Astartes. So brother Israfel tried to take the answers from his skull, a very dangerous task indeed. Zahariel tried to fight it and use his terror sighting, but a voice told him to calm down. And so he did. He told his tale to the Astartes. It was the truth, but he did omit the part played by his cousin and how he found those figures. Israfel found that he told the truth. Midris wasn't so sure, and then a being of light came to thank Zahariel. He was the Emperor that recognized our young knight and recognized he had some power in him. The Emperor commanded that his mind be wiped so he won't remember anything related to this stuff. After all, unity was important. 1 week later, on the same platform, the Emperor came to Caliban at an event known as the Descent of Angels. Many young knights were gathered. Winners of the Astarte trials, Zahariel, Nemiel, Attilas, and Elitha, had all made it through. About Nemiel, it took his cousins 2 days to find him, and he looked nervous, but he eventually came back to it. On the platform, the lion gave an impressive speech and came up with the name of the legion, the Dark Angels, in honor, memory, and respect of the tales of Caliban. They had made him a giant. That's what Zahariel was now, and every day he discovered new things about himself. When he became a knight, his rebirth was metaphorical, but now it was true. His bond with Nemiel had grown since the two became Astartes. But of that faithful knight they do not speak, lest it tears their brotherhood apart. It tears. The two cousins were relegated to the 22nd chapter under chapter master Hadriel. They were now to take guard duty, as Nemiel called it, of a planet known as Sarosh. Zahariel called it duty, but Nemiel was disgruntled with this mission. A seneschal told the two cousins that the chapter master was waiting for them. There in the meeting, questions were raised. The Whitescars were supposed to bring this world into compliance, but they failed to do so for 12 months. The Astartes there thought that the Whitescars were throwing this job at them, and that was degrading. But Hadriel told them it was the lion and Luther's wish, and so it was done. Usually, when a world isn't compliant, the Imperium starts a war. The problem is that at first the Sarosh was ready to be compliant. They wanted that. But apparently they had a bureaucratic system that the EU leeches drool and fantasize about. 25% of the world's population had a government job, and so compliance had to go through many levels. That's why it took 12 months, to the hatred of the White Scars and the Imperial leaders. A ceremony was held where Shen Khan, the leader of the White Scars, who were supposed to bring Sardosh to compliance, gave to the lion the orders. A ceremony began. Zahariel made himself unseen until Kurgis, a member of the White Scars, came to him. Kurgis apologized for this duty, and to Zahariel, this fellow Astartes reminded him of his cousin. They also talked about Zahariel, who was talking to Shen Khan. Apparently, the Calibanite was gesticulating giant motions in a way to show the Astartes he was not intimidated. Apparently, he thinks Astartes are bears. Haradriel, much like Luther and others, couldn't receive the gene seed because of their age, and so they had undergone surgeries that made them taller, stronger, and faster than regular humans. But they were still dwarfed by regular Astartes. Zahariel talks about this complex that his chapter master has. Next, Kurgis tells Zahariel to not trust the people of the planet. They always seem unlucky, or for him, that does not believe in luck, ill-intentioned. It doesn't help that the imperial governor, who should be responsible for the passing over of the duties, doesn't seem that keen to do his job. At some point, these two also swear an oath for the Dark Angels and the Lion, and for the White Scars and Jagatai Khan. And then they break the cups like they're Greek, but that doesn't matter. A remembrancer was on the planet, taking pictures of the world. She contemplated that the Imperium would disturb these people that seemed to live peaceful lives. She was also a composer, and she planned to make a symphony of their music combining with the latest fashions of the Imperium. Dusan, her golden masked escort, told her there will be enough music at the festival in honor of the Dark Angels. Now Zahariel was a trusting person, but he didn't trust the people of Sarosh. Their golden masks didn't help either. He also learned from Kurgis that they don't have prisons, that criminals in their cultures are forced to work more hours in the bureaucratic system, a unique form of torture in of itself. But the White Scars didn't trust it. These people claimed to be a civilized society, and those are usually pretty complex in their punishments. Also, their census is wrong by 8%. As Kurgis said, it doesn't seem that much, but presented wise in numbers, that means 7 million people disappeared in the last 10 years. Our remembrancer was at the festival with Dusan, her guide. Dusan worked as an explainer, because the complex bureaucratic system needs those. She enjoyed her time, and Dusan takes her to a better place where music is made. By the time she gets dragged by him, she starts getting scared, as she should. She realizes she got poisoned. Dusan brought her to a courtyard. She was paralyzed now. Dusan apologized and said that her race was declared unclean, and she will be used against the angel liars. Two figures come to pick her up, and they move weird like reptilians, One of those figures has their man slip a little, and when she saw what was underneath, she screamed. Zahariel had told his cousin about the missing people, and Nemio had the solution for that. He had the conclusion. Their leaders ate them. The leader of Sarosh came to the Dark Angel's ship, and he was a fat man. As fat as an Astartes is tall. Anyway, the lion receives him, and they walk to a chamber of the ship so they can talk compliance. Since the Dark Angels were to go on the planet either way, Zahariel remains behind. Luther calls to him to look over the vessel that brought the Sarosh leader. It was an old design, so the Mechanicum lost interest in it pretty quickly. Luther looked about it and under it, and came with a pale face and a look of worry on his own face. Zahariel saw that and asked what is happening, but Luther told him to just go to the ceremony. So Zahariel did as asked, but as he walked he felt that something was wrong. He wasn't the only one that knew that, but he felt he was the only one that wanted to stop it. The Sarosh leader asked if they put tiny men in charge, noting the imperial delegates and Sir Haradriel. For all intents and purposes, the chapter master kept his cool and explained he did not get the gene seed, which is surprising because he usually gets angry at those comments. The Sarosh leader makes a comment about how they are vat-grown. The lion presses on that, but he gets dismissed. As they reach the chamber, the dude seems to talk directly, and the lion likes that. What he doesn't like is how the dude tells him they do have a religion on the planet and how they worship it. It was the lack of worship that kept Sarosh from being compliant. On the embarkation deck, Zahariel finds it empty. He looks around the ship and under it and sees that it has no heat shields. Those usually help with the ship so it can re-enter its atmosphere without turning into a molten ball. Which means that the people it brought did not plan to leave. He looks around and finds the nose of the ship to be strange in shape and new compared to the whole vessel. So he opens it and finds a weird device there. Luther comes and tells him it's a nuclear warhead. Zahariel questions the second in command. It's pretty clear that Luther knew about this. Luther starts crying and says that when he realized, he wondered what could be his, the Legion, Caliban. He got filled with jealousy. He didn't have to do anything but walk away. Zahariel says he is a great hero, but Luther rebuts it, that in another age that would have been true, but not while living in the same time as the lion. Nevertheless, he regretted his greed and came back to stop the bomb. Problem was, he didn't know how. The Sarosh leader antagonized the lion, the emperor, and the imperium until the lion couldn't handle it and just cut him down. On the embarkation deck, the bomb started ticking. Damn, as Luther says. The Saroshi vessel decided to start lifting itself, meaning this bomb had a place it wanted to be and blow up. Luther and Zahariel tried desperately to make it stop, to push the panic button, but Zahariel managed to open the doors of the embarkation deck. This usually results in everything that wasn't locked on the ground being flown into space. The two Astartes would survive and Luther would announce through Vox of what happened, asking for a Medicaid team. He will be granted that, but the lion ordered an urgent meeting. On the ship deck, all officers were gathered, and the lion and Nemio came with anger in their eyes. They came to the deck a few seconds after Zahariel and Luther and asked the captain what is happening. Apparently, on the ships of the expedition, mutineers started to appear, which wasn't that big of a problem because they got put down. But one of those groups managed to launch a torpedo into another ship, breaking its hull and sending many soldiers into space. The astropath also had some bad news. Lady Argenta told them that the things the Saroshi worship might in fact be Xenos beasts that can be summoned through the warp. Zahariel said that isn't possible, and the lion gave him a glare that could kill. They couldn't just bomb the planet, because there was no knowing what would happen to the ritual if they just bombed it. And they didn't know that that was enough to stop it to begin with. But don't worry, brother Israfel had a plan. One he developed after fighting some warp-related things before the lion took command of the Legion. And boy did the lion hate to be reminded those times ever existed. It's a psychic bomb that needed to be launched not from orbit, but from close proximity to where the ritual was being held. The Dark Angels prepared for war. The lion would lead the attack personally, and Nemio was with him. That made Zahariel a little jealous, but whatever. The apparent location of where they were doing the ritual was in a mine. In the beginning, the mine seemed abandoned, but a reptilian creature came and almost killed Attilas by burning his helmet and stabbing him with claws hidden behind muscle slabs. Good thing they had an apothecary there. These reptile creatures give Zahariel the same feeling that the Lion of Caliban gave him. Other squads encountered the same creatures and managed to kill one. The Dark Angels pushed on. The Lion and Nemio pushed through and came in front of Zahariel and his squad. They were fighting as heroes of legends, killing the reptiles. Once those were dead, the Lion ordered to go down inside the mine. Their enemies were under them. The Remembrancer woke up and called for the sun, but it was too late. She would become the Melachim, a host for their gods, and there was nothing she could do now. As the Dark Angels pushed, they found what happened to the 7 million people. It wasn't nice, and it was very gruesome and everywhere. Walls, floor, ceiling, everywhere. The Rememberer saw a creature breaking the veil, and she was horrified, crying tears of blood and saying that they can't and they won't. The sun corrected her that they can and they will. Our dark angels reach this place and they see the creature. Everybody was stuck in place except for the lion that proceeded to shoot down 2 cultists and ran to them with his sword. Seeing this, the dark angels did the same. Zahariel saw the Remembrancer and shot her after he saw in her eyes that she wanted to die. The lion asked what did he do. He said, what is right. Zahariel shot her 3 times, and those 3 bolts turned her to bloody mist. But from where the bolts hit her body, 3 holes in reality appeared. Of course, this was bad. What was worse was that tentacles came out of those holes, and they were looking to kill the Emperor's angels. The Dark Angels fought as hard as they could, while Brother Israfel prepared a cyclonic warhead to unleash it. Our heroes started to lose in numbers, and it didn't seem that the tentacles stopped spawning, even as they cut one down. Like a hydra. Finally, the psychic electro bomb was ready, and it was unleashed. A great psychic energy exploded, and Zahariel wielded it as a weapon to defeat the tentacles, fill up the holes, and close the veil. This left him drained and tired to no end, but they won. As they got back up, the lion had said nothing, but Zahariel felt a cold stare upon him. It was the lion. Things had moved quickly after the battle in the mine. Titan legions and Imperial forces were gathering to help put down the rebellion. The lion declared that the new recruits from Caliban were not coming up fast enough, so he will send veteran warriors back to the planet to ensure the trials are going as intended. Nemio was to remain with the lion. Zahariel tried to find him, but he couldn't. The warriors sent back to their home planet knew the truth though. The lion didn't want them next to him. Brother Israfel was on the right, alongside our Zahariel. Elita, Attias joined him too. Their deeds would not matter in the Grand Chronicles, their names forgotten as Sarosh would be. The Great Crusade would continue, though it would continue without Zahariel. Worse than that, it would continue without the man sitting the furthest away from any other in the Stormbird. It would continue without Luther.